Did you know that by 2050 there may be more plastic in the ocean than fish? And that each year at least 8 million tons of plastic end up in the water, which is the same as dumping one garbage truck into the ocean every minute? Imagine if your home was filled with plastic. What would that be like for you? In some countries, they don't need to imagine. What would it be like walking to school through something like this? It can be confusing figuring out how this happened and what we can do to help. We want to give you a better idea of what the problem is and what we can do about it. You probably already know how sad and awful it is that animals in the ocean deal with plastic waste. Sometimes they eat it and then starve because their stomachs are too full. Sometimes they get caught in it, like the rings on top of beer cans, or sometimes it gets stuck up their noses, like straws. Imagine how much that must hurt. But where is all this plastic coming from? Well, there certainly is a lot of stuff in the world today, isn't there? For example, I have here some things of mine. So one is this beautiful hair clip, which I used to wear with a special dress in Japan called kimono. So that's very special to me. Then I've got a box, a bamboo box. Just has some stuff in it. So my partner and I use this for stuff, to hold stuff. And then I've got a plastic takeaway container. Now this could be useful, or I could just use it and then throw it away. So some of these things are very important to me, but some of them are convenient and useful, and some don't really matter, and I just recycle them as soon as I'm done with them. So what happens with things when we're done with them? Well, it depends on what we do with them. For example, you probably know about littering. Do you know what happens when plastics get dropped on the street? Rainwater and wind carries the waste to our streams, rivers, and drains, and then they end up in the ocean. A couple of years ago, there was a TV series for ABC called War on Waste. Maybe you've seen it. We're going to watch a very short bit of it. This is the Yarra River. It's a river that goes through Melbourne.
When you look around this part of the Yarra, in a recent 12-month period, 2,700 cubic metres of litter and debris was removed from Melbourne's waterways. That would fill 11,000 wheelie bins. So this year, environmental group Ocean Crusaders has teamed up with Melbourne Water, Yarra River Keepers and the Clean Water Group to do a 5-day blitz along the river. Have you been surprised what you've been finding?
Yeah, it's been pretty stunning. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of polystyrene, there's a lot of plastic bottles, but we've been finding card diffs and a lot of O-bikes.
O-bikes, I know. It's amazing that plastic has been overtaken by O-bikes.
But all the O-bikes have a lot of plastic on them, and they've also got the tyres, so there's a lot of plastic there even in that. So with 5 tonne of rubbish up there, it's
5 tonne.
5 tonne in 5 days.
That's pretty extraordinary.
I'm really appreciative of you all coming along today. It's been fantastic. It's such a terrific turnout, and an enormous amount of rubbish pulled out of the river this week, and we'll pull out even more today.
Today, the final day of the clean-up, they'll be helped by around 150 paddlers in the inaugural Paddle Against Plastics event. Having seen how many plastic bottles I could get in 10 minutes on the Yarra last year, I'm fascinated how much I get today. The 5 tonnes they've pulled from a river so far this week comes from a 16-kilometre stretch just east of the city.
Trick is to get the rubbish and not fall over.
But that leaves another 370 kilometres of this river, which means there are potentially hundreds of tonnes of plastics out here. God, look at this stuff. So much polystyrene in there. It's everywhere, an absolute nightmare. Just breaks into tiny little pieces and it's floating all over the place. Look at this. All of these single-use bottles chucked. Not just water, apparently. Cotton On Foundation, empowering youth. You know what? Maybe don't use plastic bottles. That'll empower youth. It's ridiculous that it takes all these people to get up on a Sunday morning and paddle around and pick this stuff up when it should never be here in the first place. And look at it. It's disgraceful. And it can be deceptive because there are long, clean-looking stretches, at least on the surface. And then, where the river changes direction, there it is. My God. It's just disgusting. Look at this. This gets caught here and eventually the next rain this gets taken down straight into the ocean. Tell you what, people always want advertising on the ABC. I'm willing to say some brand names. Coca-Cola. Woolworths Spring Water. Powerade. Cool Rich. You liking the ad, guys? Coles Spring Water. I know it wasn't necessarily thrown away by these people, but we've got to get a better system. This is ridiculous. There's got to be a value in this. It's got to be so that people don't throw it out. And everybody in Australia should be doing it. It should be like South Australia and New South Wales has followed it now, but this is ridiculous. I mean, if this was 10 cents each, this would be hundreds of bucks here in this spot. I don't think I can get all this.
Need some help, Craig?
I need a lot of help, to be honest. Ocean Crusaders, as the name suggests, usually work at sea, helping protect marine life. But they're here today for a good reason. Most of this plastic waste will eventually end up in our oceans.
You're running out of space for the bag, are you?
I'm running out of space in the bag, I tell you what. So along with the Clean Water Group from Queensland, they've developed this supersized aquatic vacuum for all those hard-to-get-out places.
Came down here and looked at this and said, we got to do something. So we got a boat with Ocean Crusaders and we said, why don't we put a high-flow vac system so we can get access to it and accelerate it. 5 million little pieces were collected in 5 days. And we'll probably get another few 100,000 now.
It's like a polystyrene island we're on here. It's ridiculous. Well, let's see how you go.
All right.
See if you can do any better.
Fire it up.
It's quite extraordinary to see this super vac in action. It does make a lot of difference with the polystyrene, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
But I can't help thinking that it's absolutely crazy we've got to this stage where we have to vacuum our riverbanks of garbage.
I can't believe the walk path is there and that we've been able to walk past here and not do anything.
People are used to it, though, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't shock them.
No, they get used to it.
We've got used to this being the norm, that we just chuck it out and it gets in the rivers.
And it's a shame.
After what I have to say was a pretty depressing hour on the river, you wave first, do you? It's time to add my hand-picked haul to the tally before it's sent for recycling.
4.8.
4.8. Another bag.
Wow. That's crazy. Plastic is definitely one of the bigger problems
Yeah, I mean,
here.
this can be recycled. There's PET, that could be recycled.
I guess the big thing is that so much of it is just single use.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is unnecessary. You know, we've got balloons here, promotional stuff, we've got security tags,
Yeah.
we've got bits of rubber, there's toys. It's just such a variety of stuff that we use every single day.
Yeah, and just finds its way into the water. At the end of the day, the total is over 7.5 tonnes of rubbish. Everything from a mountain of O-bikes to plastic wrappers, straws, and of course, plastic bottles. And it makes you wonder how much less there might have been if only Victoria had the guts to bring in its own container deposit scheme. So if you did this at the Torrens rather than the Yarra, there'd be less of this?
Yeah, you still have people that do the wrong thing, but if this is worth money, well, I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah, exactly. Victoria's the one that's holding off on container deposit. I mean, most others seem to have promised to bring it in, but
Yeah.
what's the... why is that?
Look, I hope they're just waiting to pick the best out of all the schemes that come into play and then implement the best scheme that they can.
Yeah.
There's a
You don't want to
plastic
wait
scheme.
too long because, I mean, the Yarra can't really live with this kind of stuff in there. It's nuts. Most of the weight that came out of the Yarra were these share bikes. And it's interesting because what a great concept share bikes are, that you can reuse them and share them around and get used many times. That would have been so great. But unfortunately, people have ruined it. They throw them in and they make them a single-use item. And it's the same as plastic bottles. I mean, plastic on its own is not necessarily a bad thing, but if we can't use it properly, if we end up using it once and chucking it away and putting it into our oceans and our rivers, then maybe we should just avoid using them at all. High five. Yeah.
So what did you think of that? There were so many bottles. How did it make you feel to see them in the water? So aside from littering, what else can you do with plastics when you're done with them? Well, you can put them in the bin. Some plastics go in your normal bin, and some go in special bins found at supermarkets, like the one on the right. But what happens to the recycling once you've put it in the bin? Well, for years, Australia has sent most of its recycling overseas. It would travel in big container ships like this one, mostly to Asia, where they would sort it out and make it reusable. Why did we do this? Because it cost so much less to ship it over there and have someone else deal with it. So this all sounds great, shipping our stuff overseas and having them deal with it. But why do we have such a problem with plastics in our water? What happens to the plastics in Asia? Well, it all comes down to how much plastic there is. We send our recycling to Asia, where they have their own recycling plus all of ours. Let's have a look at this video from Indonesia.
Plastics are treated as a product that miraculously appears from nowhere, and it goes to nowhere. It starts when the oil and the gas leave the wellhead, and it keeps on being a problem at every stage along the way. Why is it that we're seeing so much more plastics entering the environment? This is the story of plastics.
We got into recycling because we thought it was the right thing to do. Of course, it is a disposal service. At its core, it's taking stuff that people don't want anymore and trying to do something better than landfill with it. In 2013, under significant pressure from our city council, we began accepting non-bottle mixed rigid plastic. So all the plastic containers, berry containers, keg cups, plastic cold cups, from Starbucks. Procter & Gamble wants us all to believe that all their packaged goods are in, totally environmentally sound packaging. They want us all using single-use packaged products so that we're just, on the supply chain. It's totally unfair to the cities and the recyclers on the back end, because then everyone says, oh, it's recyclable, it's recycle ready, you should collect it. Well, then what?
The United States was shipping over 50% of its plastics and its papers to China. The situation was very similar in Europe. We were just shipping it all to China. China will deal with it. And we built up these big recycling programs, and everything was about recycle. Recycle, recycle, recycle is the solution to everything, because we had China there. So China's just said, you know what? We're sick of being a dumping ground, and we don't want this stuff introduced into our country. I see the China thing as a reckoning, because it's all been this false market where we've just been shipping stuff to China. This is, in my 25-year career, this is the biggest recycling crisis globally that we have ever seen.
At the same time, the tons are going up and up and up, the price is going down and down and down and down, to the point where now it's costing us $50 a ton to get rid of. If you think we're just going to take it from China and ship it to Thailand or Indonesia or Vietnam, where's it going to go?
When the government shut down the recycling center, most people shift to more remote or hidden villages or other countries.
From US. This Nestle from UK. Yeah, it's from Australia. This came from Toronto. Dunkin' Donut. It's from Oregon. From New Zealand. Divana.
Ya awalnya kita memang merasa plastik ini sesuatu yang bagus ya. Jadi ini praktis begitu. Tapi kemudian terakhir kita bisa melihat bagaimana plastik itu berubah menjadi sebuah bencana bagi kita karena
What did you see there? Did you see Australian, American, and Canadian recycling in that plastic pile? There was plastic from all over the world in that one little village. So I'm not surprised that Asian countries are saying they don't want our plastic recycling anymore. In fact, Indonesia has said no thank you to our recycling. In July last year, they sent 69 containers back to Australia. So now we have a big problem, right? We have a lot of plastic recycling, but nowhere to send it. So what should we do? Well, let's back up for a second. Remember at the start when I said there's a lot of stuff in the world? I talked about 3 things: a hairpiece I wore with my kimono in Japan, a box made from bamboo, and a plastic takeaway container. I don't want to keep this plastic container. This isn't practical, useful, or sentimental for me. I just want to use it and throw it away. But how many things are made like this? Turns out, not only do we already make a lot of stuff from plastic, but people think we're going to end up using even more, 33% more by 2025. That's really soon and a lot more plastics. Now, it didn't always used to be like this. Did you know that people used to have milk delivered every day in glass bottles? The milkman would drop off the milk in the morning and return the next day to pick up the empty bottles. But once plastic was invented in the 1950s, companies found they could make a lot of money by packaging things in plastic. Picking up and washing the bottles wasn't their problem anymore. Over time, more and more stuff is made from plastic or wrapped in plastic. Now, companies make a lot of money by making things cheap and disposable. How much money? Well, one company that makes those bottles we saw in the Yarra, Coca-Cola, made $32 million in 2018. They spend millions of dollars on research and advertising, but very little on how to help the environment. And as you can see from this picture, they are responsible for the most litter around the world. What do you think about that? Do you think that companies should be able to use as much plastic as they want? There are a lot of people who think that companies need to be more responsible about what they make. These people from around the world have joined together as Break Free from Plastic. In October 2019, 900 volunteers in 42 countries held 239 cleanups in their towns. The waste was sorted by which companies made it, which helps us understand which companies are doing the most harm. By tracking the plastics, they get a better idea of who is making all the plastic that is ending up in the ocean. With that information, we can start to talk to the companies about making changes. For example, the Break Free from Plastics community includes people like Tara Benning, who started River Warrior, helping a group of high school students clean up Brantas River in Indonesia. Because of their work looking at what is in the river, she can talk to government about single-use plastics and trying to make some changes in her country. Do you want to help? You can also do this. Time to check your own plastic use. We want to know what kind of plastics you guys are using. You probably know what kind of chips you eat or the toilet paper you use, but which company made it? To do this task, you'll need to have saved your plastic for 7 days. If you haven't already done this, you can start now. So step 1 is saving your clean plastic. For 7 days, save all of the plastic that you and your family use. Anything you throw in the bin or recycling, clean it out and put it in a box or a bag. Once you have a nice pile of plastic, it's time to sort. Divide the plastics by name. Another way of saying this is brand. So for example, here's washing up gloves from Ansell. So the brand is Ansell, and the item is a washing up glove. This is toilet paper. distinct from toilet paper, by Coles. So the brand is Coles. And this is a pastry case, a frozen pastry case by the brand Pampas. So the second step is dividing the plastics into what name or brand they are. And now you get to write down what you found. Your teacher should have provided you a homework sheet to write down this information. Write down what the product is, like washing up gloves, what the brand is, like Ansell, and how many packets you have. So step 3 is writing down the information about the plastic on the homework sheet. Now, sometimes the brand is different from the company that makes it, and it can be useful to know what company makes the product. To find out what company makes it, you can look for an address or a copyright symbol. Here you see a pie crust, the pie crust I saw before, made by Pampas, that's made by the company Goodman Fielder. You can see it right before their address. If you're not sure what company makes the product, ask a parent or an older sibling. We hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about plastics today. Now you know they are a problem for the environment, especially our waterways and the animals that live there, and also that our plastic is a big problem for other countries, particularly Asia. We also talked about the fact that companies make a lot of money out of these plastics, and that by helping track our waste, we can help groups like Break Free from Plastic have conversations with these companies. We're excited to see what you find out about your own plastic use.